Okay, think about pretty much anything you own. Your phone, your sneakers, maybe even the car you drive. Right now, its story is, well, it's a closed book, isn't it? You don't really know its history, what it's made of, or its real impact on the planet. It's all kind of hidden. But what if we could actually open that book? That's the huge idea behind something called the Digital Product Passport. It's a technology that is seriously going to change everything about how we make, buy, and use stuff. So come on, let's turn the first page together.
So in this explainer, we're going to unfold the whole story of these digital product passports. First, we'll tackle the problem of these closed books. Then we'll get right into what a digital passport actually is. We'll look at how it's the engine for a circular economy, dive into the tech that makes it all tick, and finally, we'll check out how these passports are already popping up in the real world.
All right, let's jump into Chapter 1, From Closed to Open Books. We're going to start with the big problem, the fact that right now we just don't know the full story behind our products.
So for forever, all we've really had are these closed books, right? You know, the little paper manuals and labels that you get with a new product. They're static, you probably lose them after 5 minutes, and let's be honest, they tell you almost nothing about the product's real journey. But here's where it gets really cool. The open book of a digital passport. That's a whole different story. It's a living, breathing digital record. It's constantly updated. It's designed so that everyone, from the manufacturer to the recycler, can read it, and it gives you the full picture for the product's entire life.
So that brings us right to our next chapter. We've laid out the problem, so what's the solution? What exactly is a digital product passport? So at its heart, a digital product passport, or DPP for short, is basically a structured digital record. It's packed with verified info that covers a product's entire life, from the moment its raw materials are sourced to the day it's recycled. And here's the key part. All of that digital information is physically linked to the product itself with something as simple as a QR code that you can just scan with your phone. It's kind of like a digital twin, but for a product's data. And if you're wondering what's actually in the passport, well, here are the chapters of the story. You get the product's identity and a full trace of where it's been. You get its exact material makeup, including how much of it is recycled. You can see its real environmental footprint, get step-by-step repair instructions, and see all its safety certifications. It is, quite literally, a complete biography of an object.
So you might be asking, why do all this? What's the point? Well, the main event, the big goal here, is to power something called a circular economy. That's a system that's designed from the ground up to turn what we think of as waste back into valuable resources.
The DPP is the missing link here. It gives us the crucial information we need at every single stage of a circular product's life. So when you're designing it, you know exactly which sustainable materials to use. When it breaks, you can pull up repair guides instantly. For businesses, it helps them spot which parts can be reused or remanufactured. And then, at the very end of its life, it makes sure everything gets sorted and recycled properly. It's a total game changer.
I just love this phrase. It really gets to the heart of it. A DPP is not some static PDF that gets created once and then forgotten. It's a living lifecycle record. It evolves and updates as the product moves through the world, when it's sold, when it's used, when it's repaired, and eventually, when it becomes something new. The story keeps getting written.
Now, it's really important to get this. This isn't just a nice idea or some voluntary green initiative. The European Union has actually made this the law. It's called the Ecodesign for Sustainable Products Regulation, or ESPR. And what it means is that for a whole lot of products, if you want to sell them in the EU, you have to have a digital product passport. So the crucial point is, this is happening.
Okay, so if this is becoming law, how in the world does it all work? That brings us to the infrastructure, the actual tech and the rules of the road that are making this whole system of product transparency possible.
The cool thing is, the technology is already here. We've got the data carriers, like the QR codes we talked about, to link a physical thing to its digital data. All that data lives in the cloud, so it can be updated anytime, anywhere. But the really key part is building what are called interoperable systems. Basically, making sure everyone is speaking the same data language so it can be read easily. And finally, you have digital platforms that track materials all the way from the mine to the factory to you.
And this part right here is absolutely critical. Without common rules, what we call harmonized standards, for how all this data is structured and shared, the whole system it falls apart. You just end up with thousands of different companies creating their own little data islands that can't talk to each other, which defeats the entire purpose.
And of course, whenever you have this much data flying around, you have to talk about governance and security. It's a huge deal. The info has to be rock solid and accurate. You need to control who gets to see what, to protect company secrets. And you absolutely have to prevent anyone from tampering with the data. Trust is everything.
All right, let's get to our final chapter. Let's see how these passports are making the leap from an idea on paper to something that's actually happening in the real world, from small-scale pilots to massive global mandates.
So as you can see from this timeline, the ball is already rolling, and it's picking up speed. The main regulation became law in 2024. Starting in 2026, we're going to see it rolled out for the first big industries. Then comes the really big one. In 2027, the battery passport becomes the very first legally required DPP, especially for things like electric cars. And by 2030, you can expect to see it on textiles, electronics, furniture, you name it.
And just to give you a sense of how deep this goes, the EU battery passport alone requires over 100 different pieces of data. We're talking everything from the carbon footprint of every single step of manufacturing, all the way down to the specific country and mine where the raw materials came from. It's a level of transparency we have just never seen before.
And look, don't think for a second this is just a European thing. This is a global movement for sure. You've got early pilot programs from the Global Battery Alliance. We're talking big names like Tesla and Audi that literally proved they could trace 100% of the cobalt in certain EV batteries all the way back to the exact mine it came from. That's incredible. Meanwhile, other huge projects are building the secure platforms we need for all this data sharing, and other major economies like China are developing their own systems. The momentum here is absolutely global.
So that brings us to the end of our story, for now. We are heading toward a world of total product transparency, where every single thing we own has a detailed story we can read with a quick scan of our phone. And that leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about. When you finally have the power to read that story, which products will you choose?